Hey, it's JJ, and welcome to Ask the Health Expert. But this isn't just any old Ask the Health Expert session. This is your bonus session. Yes, it's the weekend, and because it's the weekend, we are going to take some time with an amazing expert. So be on the lookout for these Saturday Ask the Health Expert bonus sessions where we're going to go deep into an amazing subject with an incredible expert to give you actionable items that you can put into your life. Hey, it's JJ, and welcome to today's show. We have a super important topic, and this is one that I really hope you will share. In fact, I'm going to ask you to please share this with as many of your friends as possible. Today, we are going to talk about breast cancer, and specifically, we're going to be talking about how to do a breast self-exam and why early breast cancer detection is so key and critical, and how you can ensure that you're doing your breast self-exam correctly. And as a friend of a couple close friends now who've been diagnosed with and gone through breast cancer over the last year or two, this is near and dear to my heart. I'm sure if you've listening, you've probably had a sister, friend, mother, aunt who's had the same. So this is one that, again, is we're going to talk through breast self-exams, early detection, some of the triggers, so that you have the power, literally at your fingertips, to be able to change this course, as this is the number 2 leading cause of death for women. I have the most amazing guest to walk through this today. Her name is Dr. Veronique Desaulniers. We call her Dr. V. She is the best-selling author, in fact, number 1 in 10 different categories on Amazon, of Heal Breast Cancer Naturally, and she is a breast cancer survivor. And she has the brand Breast Cancer Conqueror, and she developed her 7 essential system, which she's used this signature process with thousands of women in over 43 countries to help them conquer breast cancer as well. And most recently, she has partnered with something called My Breast Friend, and it is this amazing system for how you can learn how to do a breast self-exam correctly. And that's what we'll talk about today, because if you were like me, you probably were given a little shower card and said, okay, follow this, which turns out is not the correct way to do that at all. So again, if this is something that has impacted you personally, something that you're concerned about, I think I'm probably talking about everyone, then this episode is for you. And I also ask that you share this with as many of your girlfriends and family members as possible. Now, the show notes for today are going to be at jjvirgin.com/mybreastfriend. You'll want to grab those because we are going to have visuals of some of the things we're discussing on the show today, as well as an ebook that you can download there by Dr. V. And before I jump into the show and introduce you to Dr. V, who's just a lovely, brilliant soul, I want to do a shout out to Transform for Life from the United States. And this is a 5-star review. It says, this podcast speaks straight to my soul. It says, I found JJ when she was a guest on Mark Divine's podcast a few years ago, and she is now my favorite podcast. Wow. Thank you. From this podcast, I found amazing supplements, and I now have a meditation practice that is amazing. I'm a yoga instructor, personal trainer, and fitness coach, so I share the information with everyone I work with. Even more gratitude towards you for doing this. I have always felt like it was okay to be a copycat as long as you copy the right cat. JJ is definitely the right cat. I'm so thankful for this podcast. I love the length and the variety of topics. Oh, thank you so much. Love that. Now, before we dive in, I want to share another favorite with you. So hang on, and I'll be right back with Dr. V. Dr. Veronique, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, JJ. It's an honor. We've got a lot of great things to talk about.
Yes, we do. This is a huge, huge topic. I am so thrilled to have you on to talk about it. So, again, we are talking about breast cancer and early detection and breast self-exams today. And you really are the perfect person to be talking about all of this because of your health journey. So let's start there. How you got interested and how you became the breast cancer conqueror. How about that?
Yeah, not by choice. It's one of those things, our pain becomes our purpose, I guess. So I'd been in practice for about 25 years and I was getting ready for work, jumped in the shower and was doing a breast self exam in the shower. And bam, felt that lump that changed the course of my life, professionally and personally, forever. And as I went through my first healing journey in 2004 through 2006, the big question was, how could something like this happen to me? I thought I was doing everything right. I ate organic before organic was in style. I breastfed my kids, did everything right. But here I was facing a cancer journey. And so I had to really ask myself, what were the pieces of the puzzle that I was missing? So I dove into research and started looking at things, and it was really, honestly, it was quite overwhelming for me. Even if I had, some professional experience after being in practice for 25 years. So, I had to really ask myself, if I'm feeling this way, how much more so with the average woman who's facing a cancer journey? So I created a system that would simplify everything. You look at an elephant, how do you eat it one bite at a time? So that's what I did is I broke everything down into a 7-step process called a 7 essential system, which brings you through step by step through the journey. So it really, makes it easy for you to, check off the boxes and say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And fast forward several years, 9 years later, I had started sharing my healing journey online, became known as the Breast Cancer Conqueror. 5 years into that, same situation. I wasn't feeling well. I had pain in my left breast, and bam, again, there it was, same spot. It's like, ugh, pit in
Oh,
my
I didn't
stomach,
realize it
right?
was the same spot. My
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah, same spot, same area. And, so this time I was even more devastated because here I was, the breast cancer conqueror, and all these women were relying on me in my teachings and, encouraging them that they can do it. And yet I was facing cancer again. So it was really kind of a dark moment of the soul for me. I had to really face my demons and say, okay, am I a fraud? Is this really working? What did I miss? So I just, I had to say, it's okay. You're human. Look at what you missed. I was working from sun up to sundown. I was doing one-on-one coaching, which, I was absorbing all that cancer energy, breast cancer energy. And I just realized I had to pull back and, take care of myself, draw boundaries, learn to say no, manage my stress, and look at the things that created the perfect storm for me to develop cancer again.
Wow. And that actually, when you really look at these things, first of all, creating the 7-step system in the first place, when people are faced, they're so afraid, they're looking for answers and they're overwhelmed, was just fantastic so that people know exactly what they need to do, go on that path, but also to show that if it does happen again, here's what you need to do. And that if you aren't practicing these things, like you mentioned, okay, so I started letting things slip. I let the boundaries slip. I started overworking, the things that we kind of know we're not supposed to do, but because of early detection, you were able to take a wake up call and put it to use, which is part of that story is this ability to do breast self exams as early detection. And, I mean, we all as women have been told to do breast self exams. I've never actually been taught how to do one. We're given the little shower card,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And it's something that prior to your new My Breast Friend, which I'm like beyond excited about. I think this is going to change the course of health for women worldwide. Like talk about making an impact and leaving a legacy. Um, but let's dig into this because I'm one of those people. Like I never learned how to do it correctly. I never really paid any attention to it. I figured it's something you worry about later, and you get a mammogram. And so why is it that for so many of us women, it's just not something that we do, even though we know how important it is?
Well, first of all, you mentioned, we've never really been taught the importance of it. You're given that little pamphlet, stick it in the shower, put it by your bedside. but nobody's ever showed us how to do a proper breast self-exam. And even if you do your yearly mammograms or thermograms and ultrasounds, it's so important for you to understand that there's a lot of things that can change from year one to year two, right? There's still 364 days of the year where your breast tissue can change. And, there's actually a term called interval cancers, where these cancers that develop in between those yearly screenings are much more aggressive because they start developing so rapidly. So this whole thing about My Breast Friend is about empowering women to be in charge of their body. Your doctor is going to feel your breasts once a year. You get to feel them, every day if you want to. So it's important to understand what is involved in a breast self-exam.
So do you think, I mean, is some of the reason women aren't doing this regularly, is it either A, it's sort of like flossing, you just sort of forget, or is it maybe it's a little denial scary? Like, why is it that we're not, I mean, besides the fact of never even really being taught correctly, why are we not doing it?
Because women are in denial. That's what I hear most of the time. I don't know what I'm feeling, and if I feel something, I'm going to freak out, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's a matter of knowing the geography and the feel of your breast tissue, because every woman's going to be different, and learning to detect something that's unusual, that's not always there. That's the big key. And that's
Mm.
what this whole training system does for you, is it teaches you to understand what normal breast tissue feels like, and what your normal breast tissue feels like, and then what an actual lump may feel like. And you learn that by using the breast model, because the breast model, it's a silicone breast model that was developed with the grants from National Cancer Institute and the National Science Foundation. And this model, silicone breast model, is so lifelike that it's been used to calibrate imaging machines. And so,
God, wouldn't it be great, Veronique, if this is like in high school?
yes,
This was part of high school education. Like,
yes.
just like when you go to the dentist. And I actually had my first dentist teach me how to floss a couple of years ago. I
Hmm.
thought, this is just ridiculous. Like, why weren't we taught to floss? And like, I mean, I was flossing, but he's like, you're not flossing right. And I'm like, what do you mean not flossing right?
Right, right, right.
Like, why aren't we in high school or junior high or elementary school taught these things that are like the life-changing things? And, I know that I've done like random breast self exams on myself and sometimes felt things and not known it. Well, is this something? Is this not something? I'm like, again, how would you know? So, yeah, let's talk about this. I'm literally have one right down here in my hand. I'm pulling it out. Um, so let's talk about the My Breast Friend. But before that, let's just give a little bit more validity as to why, if someone is just waiting and they're doing their annual exam, whether it's thermography or mammography or ultrasound or whatever they're doing, why is it so critical to do this in between, beyond those? You talked about the cancers that could come
In
jump in
between, yeah.
between.
Mhm.
But, what are the stats for breast self exam and finding cancers?
Women are very, very surprised when I pull out these numbers. So there was a 23-year study done on, I forget how many hundreds of women, it was over 300 women. And they found that mammograms detected breast tumors 43% of the time, that a breast self-exam and I just accidentally happened to find it type of exam was 43%. And then when you add a clinical breast exam on top of that, your doctor, your nurse is feeling your breast, it adds up to 56%. So touch is actually more is more perceptive and more accurate than a literal machine, the
Wow.
mammogram. 56% compared to 43%. And then when you add the issues with dense breast tissue, Joan London, really made dense breast tissue popular because, she had a mammogram, everything was clear on the mammogram, but came to find out with an ultrasound she had triple negative breast cancer. So important to understand that touch once you train your fingers and your brain to understand the difference between normal breast tissue and a suspicious lump, and you can feel them in that silicone breast model, that these lumps can hide in different areas and even as deep as the chest wall. So there's a whole method to doing a breast exam. It's not just feeling around, but we teach you how to do this properly.
So let's talk through it then. And we will in the show notes. We are going to include this so you can see this, and I think you've got a video about it as well, right?
Yeah, an instructional
So
video. Yeah.
you're gonna get that. You're going to get the Breast Friend ebook. So you'll get all of this. So if you're having trouble visualizing it, it sort of looks like a breast implant that I'm
Yeah.
looking at right now, right?
It's purple. It's really, really pretty.
Yeah. So it's purple. Don't think probably breast implants are purple. I don't know. But it's purple and it's got some lumpies in it, and which is a little scary. I must admit, when I first looked at it, I'm like, So walk us through this training system and how it should be used, what people need to do with it.
So half of the model feels like regular breast tissue. It's very nodular. The other half is very smooth. So that teaches you the difference between what's not normal breast tissue and what normal is. The nodular. There's three main components to a proper breast self-exam. The first thing is you have to learn what to feel for, and that's what the model teaches you, because there's 4 lumps, different sizes and different locations. And as you watch the instructional video when you purchase the model, then it teaches you how to do that. The second aspect is, what to feel for, or where and how deep to feel, excuse me. So you have to use light, medium, and deep pressure all the way down to the chest wall. And the third is where to feel. Some women think, well, as long as I palpate my breasts, I'm okay. But tumors can hide in the armpit, as high up as the collarbone, the chest wall, the sternum. So you have to follow a specific grid method that we teach you to cover all of that breast tissue. And you don't do it in the shower standing up. You have to do it laying down and at a 45-degree angle. So there's 2 aspects to it. But the whole training system walks you through it. And once you learn that, the first time it takes you, maybe 15, 20 minutes to do the training. But once you do that, it literally takes you 5 minutes after that. And I recommend that women do this every couple of weeks. Wake up in the morning, you check your breasts while you're laying in bed or before you go to bed at night. It doesn't take long once you know the system.
So you just got to put it in your calendar.
That's right.
Because that's what I literally look at. I look at the things that I have to do like every couple of weeks. They just need to go in the calendar, and then I get pinged about them, and that's it. And what's fantastic about this is there's no side effects. I didn't have to drive somewhere. It didn't cost me a lot of money. Right. So my Breast Friend system costs probably less than the copay on a mammogram or thermography or anything else. So
that's right.
So let's talk about this and, breast cancer survival rates. You get this, My Breast Friend, and it teaches you how to look for these things. And before I go there, actually, so it's teaching you, what does it talk about what to do if you have implants?
Same process. It's still learning, whether you've had a lumpectomy, mastectomy, implants, it's still the same process. You have to learn what your normal breast tissue is versus what is not normal. And, just a side note, as far as mastectomy, women think, oh, well, there's no more breast tissue. Oftentimes lumps will reappear in the incision area, or in the axilla and the armpit. So you still have to practice that exam even if you've had a mastectomy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you let's go back to the other part. So let's say that you notice something. Let's talk about early detection, because one of my very close girlfriends is a top-notch radiologist, and what she always told me was the biggest thing with breast cancer is early detection.
Yes. Size matters. Size matters when it comes to survival. The average size lump that is found by somebody who's not trained in a proper breast self-exam is the size of a ping pong ball, 4 to 5
What?
centimeters. Yes.
How
Yes.
could you be walking around with a ping pong ball sized lump and not know it?
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. They just, maybe it's deep in the breast, or they just happen to notice something different in the mirror. It
Oh my
happens all the
gosh.
time.
Really?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
And once someone is trained in the proper method, the Mamacare method, which is now my breast friend, they can find something as small as a pea, just half, zero point 0.5 centimeters. So that's a huge difference. And statistically, if you find a tumor that's a centimeter or less and it's addressed, quickly, the survival rate is 15 years and 88%. And so, the numbers go up. The smaller the tumor, once it's found, then the higher the survival rates and the longer the life expectancy.
Well, when they say those survival rates, at what point after you've had cancer does your chance of a reoccurrence, you know, go down to close to zero?
Well, traditional medicine uses the 5-year mark, but that's not very accurate because you could be half dead on the day before 5 years, and they still count it as survival. But really, when it comes to survival rates and recurrence, my attitude is just be very diligent all the time. If you've had breast cancer or any type of cancer once, you've got to maintain your lifestyle so that you do everything you can so to prevent that from happening again, because your body has dealt with cancer. It's kind of in the memory, right?
Mhm.
Cellular memory. So you have to really stay on top of everything and use tools. Essential number 7 is all about embracing very early detection. And that's everything from tests inside traditional medicine to tests outside of traditional medicine, various blood tests that can detect DNA, cancer DNA in the blood or cancer proteins in the blood, thermography, ultrasound, everything that's out there.
So, what are the statistics right now for women? I know that heart disease is our number one. Is breast cancer number two?
Breast cancer is, yes, the second leading cause of death in women. And unfortunately, it's not so much from the cancer itself. Oftentimes, it's as a result of, very aggressive treatments, or on the flip side, they've avoided it and they found it too late. Unfortunately, sometimes we hear their stories.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the doctor and they're already stage 3 or stage 4, and there's just not enough time to get on top of it.
So, what are some of the risk factors for someone be more likely to be at risk for breast cancer?
There's a lot of triggers. As a matter of fact, in the updated edition of my new book, Heal Breast Cancer Naturally, I talk about the 7 triggers. And so, the triggers can be anything from diet to, obviously lifestyle, stress management, exposure to toxins. We know we live in
Mm-hmm.
a very toxic world. We can't live in a bubble, but there's certain things that you can do to avoid, the toxins in your home and on your body. Looking at your stress levels. We know that if you're in stress mode and your adrenaline and cortisols are pumping, that's going to increase your risk for breast cancer. That's a given fact. Looking at your dental issues, make sure that there's not a lot of infections in your mouth, that you don't have any metal fillings, you don't have root canals, because root canals are a toxic site that drip, very toxic bacteria into your system, and that can compromise your immune system. And then look at your basic blood work. Stay on top of your blood work. You obviously you understand this, JJ. As far as sugar levels, make sure you're not insulin resistant. Look at your vitamin D levels. If your vitamin D levels are optimal, it reduces your breast cancer risk by over 83%.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, something as simple as vitamin D. Yes.
Wow, that is amazing. I have never heard that before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
still it's not standard to test vitamin D levels. It makes no sense to me.
It's crazy. These women who are under an oncologist's care and they come to us and their vitamin D levels are at 20. Optimal range, therapeutic range should be between 80 and 100. 50 minimally, 50 and 60, but 20, and they don't tell them anything about it.
And what is the percentage of women now that will get breast cancer? Like, where are we at?
It's 1 out of 8 women are destined to develop breast cancer, but 1 out of 3 women will develop some form of cancer. Men will be 1 out of 2, and women it's 1 out of 3. And soon it's going to be 50% for everybody in another 20 years.
Oh my gosh. That is why, I know that you have your program and you've written this best-selling book that's there to help people who've been diagnosed have the steps to walk them through so they can regain their health. But I look at it and go, you should be on this now. Like, we just need to
Absolutely.
set up our body, because I worry that a lot of it, for a lot of us, the two that I see as big challenges for this audience, because, they're doing the diet, they're doing, they're doing exercise and lifestyle and reducing sugar and optimizing vitamin D. But, we've got to be dealing with the toxic burden that I think is driving so much of this, and the stress burden, where like we have a society that still celebrates overworking and overdoing. And, especially for women, it's like self-care has got to be at the top, and, we've got to take time to putter and again, right?
That's right. That's right. And that was really one of my biggest takeaways from my second healing journey was to learn to draw boundaries, learn to say no, self-nurture, self-care, always, it's in my calendar, tennis, meditation, sauna, coffee enemas,
Hmm.
just to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, and stress is not part of my vocabulary anymore. I refuse to be
No
stressed
badge
because
of
I
honor
know
for that one. And
that's right.
it was interesting when my son was in the hospital. It was like the first night Dr. Hyla Cass came in with all these supplements to help with stress. I just reached out for help, and I'm like, I am not, I know what this could do, and I'm not going down with it. Like, it's, we are going to be able to get through this, and me being stressed out is not going to make it, make me be able to get through it better. So,
That's right. That's right.
I look at everything you're doing, and I think one of the challenges out there is we tend to want to pretend this isn't something and ignore it. When
Mm-hmm.
if you just start to look at, all right, I'm going to start doing this. And in fact, it's sitting right here with me right now, my breast friend, that this is something that is empowering you. And that if you look right now and say, I'm going to, know that if you do get cancer, there's all of these things that you can do to help you get through it. But why not start right now with not just early detection, but early prevention, right? And I know prevention's always tough to sell to people, but make your body inhospitable to it because of what you're doing to detoxify, and because of what you're doing with stress management in your life, and because of how you're eating and living.
That's right. And there's, when you purchase the model, there's actually an opportunity to get an online program about, it's called Your Guide to Preventing Breast Cancer Naturally. And so it walks you through each of the 7 essentials so that you can really stay on top of your health. And it's not a lot, it's just common sense things that you can do every day to nurture your body and nurture your soul so that your body stays healthy and happy. Because cancer is just a tap on the shoulder. It's just telling you, something's out of balance here. You've got to, change what you're doing in your life.
So you are going to be able to get the ebook. And I'm going to put all of this at jjvirgin.com/my breast friend, which I love the title of that, my breast friend. And what we'll make sure too there is that we'll put the video so you can see what this is. Again, it just looks like a pretty purple implant. And you'll get the ebook as well, and then a link to be able to get this. And this little unit here, how much is this little my breast friend?
127.
Right.
And we have different packages because a lot of women want to get one for their daughter or
Yes.
their kids. So we have community packs and bundles
Oh,
and
that's
generation
fantastic.
packs. Yeah.
Yeah, because I look at this and I go, literally, it's less than probably a copay at a lot of the doctors to go get these any kind of testing. So this is the thing to put in to your schedule. And again, you're going to put it into your date book. That's what I'm doing, along with my other stuff that I have to do periodically. You just put it on in there so you remember to do it. And again, I mean, I think this is just peace of mind. This is my breast friend. It's peace of mind. So I super appreciate all your work on it. Again, you can grab this at jjvirgin.com/mybreastfriend. And now after the break, I'm going to come back and give you a couple of my top takeaways. So stay with me. Welcome back. Now, I will share with you that Dr. V gave me a My Breast Friend. I just picked it up. I'm looking at it right now. In fact, I was messing with it while I was interviewing her, which might seem a little bit strange. And I made the decision. I was like, I kind of looked at flossing like I was always a bad flosser. And a couple of years ago, I thought this is ridiculous. And I've become a super flosser ever since then. And now I'm making the same commitment, and I'm making the commitment here on the show with all of you that I'm committing to My Breast Friend. And I know the way to make this happen is to put it in my book and commit to doing it. And so this is something that we know to be true. This is the part of the show where I talk about the action step. Well, the action step today is to commit to breast self-exam, because everything that you look at around breast cancer is that it all comes down to early detection. And the statistics are super clear that breast self-exam done correctly is a powerful, powerful way for you to have early detection. And I know that can be scary, and kind of some of it's like denial. I don't want to do that. But I've now had a couple girlfriends, super close girlfriends, go through breast cancer, and early detection is so key and critical. And then doing some of these steps that Dr. V talked about. Now, if you've been around the community, you know that how I feel about sugar. So we've talked a lot about lowering your sugar impact. We've talked about vitamin D and optimizing it. We've talked a lot about diet and toxins and lifestyle. We haven't talked a lot about dental. I have done an interview with Trina Felber, the natural health nurse. So I'll post that into the Intel as well, because we definitely need to go deeper there, and you can get more information. I would highly recommend, when you get My Breast Friend, to do a couple things. Get My Breast Friend and get one for a friend as well, or get a couple. Last year, I gave everyone Trina Felber's teeth products, dental products for the holidays. And this year I may be giving My Breast Friends, I must say. But this is definitely one you want to get out to as many friends as possible. And then also commit, because, well, I find that it's easier to be really clear with things like diet and vitamin D and lowering sugar and exercising, because they're so tangible. It may not be as clear with things like watching your stress levels. So also commit there, because I think one of the challenges, especially with we women, is we tend to put ourselves last on the to-do list, and we overwork and overdo, and we've got to take that time out for ourselves. So the other thing I want to just pull out as a big action step is, number one, breast self-exam. Put it into your calendar. I have to do a testosterone shot every 3 weeks, so it's going there with that. I'm going to put those two together. And then number two is to make sure that you're taking some downtime for you, some time to just goof off and have fun and play and do something for yourself, all for yourself. Be selfish. Because, by the way, that self-care is not selfish. And when you take some time for yourself, you'll be better for everybody else. All righty. I want to remind you one more time. Grab the show notes from today. Lots of goodness there at jjvirgin.com/mybreastfriend. And other important thing is, go on over now. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and share this episode with every woman that you can think of. And let's get this message of self-exam, breast self-exam, all over the place. All right. I'll see you next time. Bye.